Hello there guys, my name is MrYorkiesWorld. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I've not made a video in about a week, and I've had various commitments that have been happening over the past few days, which is exactly why that has not happened. But what I have been doing is, for a long time, is talking about doing a scenery review. And I've had a lot of requests, one of which being Amsterdam, to do an Amsterdam scenery review. And this one is completely out of the blue, actually. It comes after my last video did quite well. And it's become quite popular on the channel quite quickly, so I decided to do a review of Orbx Innsbruck, which is an absolutely fantastic piece of scenery from Orbx, probably one of their most popular sceneries, and, in my opinion, a must-have piece of scenery. Obviously, the ICAO code is LOWI, or Lima Oscar Whiskey India. The airport itself is in Austria, surrounded by sort of a mountainous area, and it has to be one of my favourite airports in the sim. Now, if you're not familiar with Orbx, basically they are one of the main providers of global scenery products, such as the FTX Global or FTX Global Vector. Basically, they create scenery that brings the world to life, not just particular airports. They also do scenery which basically covers the entire globe, which is why it's called FTX Global. But amongst their scenery items, they also do LOWI, or Innsbruck, in Austria, and it's an absolutely fantastic piece of scenery. If we look here, you can see a photograph of the real airport. This is in real life. I just sourced this picture just randomly off the internet. If you've seen the Orbx version of this scenery, you'll know that it's very, very close to the real thing. The airport itself and the surrounding areas look absolutely incredible. And of course, if you wanted to go for more realism, you could also purchase the other Orbx products such as FTX Global. You could also purchase Active Sky for the weather. You could purchase a hell of a lot of different things to add on to make it look even better. Now, the airport at the moment, as of the time of making this video from the Orbx website, is $29.16 US. That's around €25.52, or in my case, £22.65. To me, it's quite a bargain. You really do get what you pay for, and I would highly recommend the piece of scenery. I mean, in terms of features that it actually has, these are just a few things that I've brought from the Orbx website. Basically, they've got 5 additional heliports: Lima Oscar Juliet Oscar, Lima Oscar India Uniform, Lima Oscar Juliet Tango, and Lima Oscar India November. So if you're not really into aviation with commercial jets or with general aviation aircraft, you might want to try out some helicopters as well. Or you might have a mixture of both. You might be interested in doing both. This airport basically has both. It has obviously the runway and everything for aircraft, for planes should I say, and for helicopters it has the heliports as well, which is absolutely fantastic. It also has over 160 landmarks and points of interest in the huge coverage area that this airport actually covers as well as 30 kilometres of animated train routes, just for those of you who are interested in a little bit more immersion and realism when you're actually flying in and out of the airport. It does have those animated train routes as well. We've got 2048 by 2048 textures as well for the priority buildings, meaning the sort of the terminal buildings and stuff like that, which basically means very, very high quality, very high resolution textures for those buildings, so they're not really going to look unrealistic and sort of grainy and stuff like that. You're not going to get that effect because the textures are just top-notch, basically. As well as that, you also have the city centre and many of the other focus areas in high detail. So they've even gone to the extent of not just covering the airport, but the surrounding area, the city centre, things like that. You've got over 20 custom bridges and overpasses. You've got all new static aircraft types that are unique to Innsbruck Airport. Now, you can turn those off. There's a way to do that by deleting some files. I wouldn't recommend it because, to me, they don't really bother me. The static aircraft, they add to the effect, in a way. The models and the texturing aren't perfect on those aircraft, in my opinion, but they do the job of adding a nice little bit of immersion to it as well. And speaking about that coverage area again, the actual area that is covered by this piece of scenery, there is a huge extended coverage area of 275 kilometres in diameter. Now that is impressive, in my opinion. That is an absolutely massive map worth of things that have been done and placed in order to bring you the amount of immersion, the amount of realism that Orbx can with the Innsbruck scenery. Now, those are literally just a few of the features that this piece of scenery has. There are loads of other different features that you can check out. If you click on the link in the description, it's going to take you directly to the Orbx website onto this page where you can purchase this particular piece of scenery. Now, in terms of the size of the airport, not that it's really relevant, but I suppose in case you've never seen Innsbruck before, it's a very small airport. It's the same case in real life. It's not just something that the scenery does. It is very much a small airport. And the reason for that, it's surrounded by mountains and terrain, so there's not really much room to extend the airport into a massive one. I personally think it's a fantastic location. It's a great airport, brilliant surrounding areas, so I'm not really bothered about it being a small piece of scenery. And to be honest, the beautiful views and cinematics that you can get, and if you've seen my previous video, the flight from Innsbruck to Amsterdam, you'll know what I mean by those visuals. Personally, that takes over priority. I'm not really bothered about the size of the airport. It's what the airport can bring to the sim that matters to me the most. Now, in terms of how accurate the gate placements and the gate numbers are, I wouldn't really know, to be honest. I've not actually been to Innsbruck in real life, so I don't know whether the geography is correct from the Orbx scenery to what it is in real life. I've no idea. All I know is basically Orbx would have done everything they can to replicate it the best way, and regardless of any of that, it looks absolutely fantastic. Definitely looks realistic. It works. It does its job. It has the static aircraft just to add to that immersion anyway. So gate numbers and stuff like that are not really that important to me. Now, what I will mention, however, about sort of like the accuracy and stuff, it's actually quite interesting because we've got some 3D ground crew there as well on the ground, as well as some animated airport traffic, such as your tow trucks, your various vans and other vehicles that are also branded with the Innsbruck airport logos and stuff like that, as well as they would be in real life. They're all scattered around doing their own thing, just to add that little bit more realism to it and just to make you feel as though you're actually there. The terminal textures, as I've said in the past, they're great as well. They're very high resolution textures. They perform well in both the daytime and the nighttime. That's the same for the 3D ground crew, for the tow trucks and everything. Everything casts and receives shadows well. It looks good, especially with your dynamic lighting and stuff. It really all jumbles in and just creates this perfect concoction, in my opinion, for a piece of scenery. Now, speaking of daytime and nighttime, we move on to the performance of the airport. Obviously, this does depend on your system settings, your sim settings, how far your sliders are and stuff like that. And it will also depend on the hardware that you're using. My own hardware setup can be seen in the description. Just for a quick glimpse at it, I'm using the Intel Core i7-4790K along with the GTX 1080 Ti and 16 gigabytes of RAM to run my sim, amongst my add-ons and tools as well, which obviously they need to be taken into account. I have a lot of add-ons that are all in the add-ons spreadsheet that's in the description of this video in case anybody has any questions on that. Just take a look at that spreadsheet and you can see what I'm using. All of that needs to be taken into account. The occasional stutter and FPS drops and lag spikes and stuff, they will happen depending on your system, and everybody is unique. I don't really have a particular set of settings that I use just for Orbx scenery or just for Innsbruck. If you've seen my settings video, or I might even just sort of make a new one at some point soon, because I'm always changing it, but it's very basic, nothing really far to the right. It's all just sort of average settings. I don't use high, I don't use low. I use sort of in the middle, sort of medium settings for all of my videos, because I find that it gets you the best results in terms of how things look and how things actually run. And if you've watched some of my videos in the past, you'll know that FPS really isn't that important to me. It's smoothness that matters, and FPS doesn't actually indicate how smooth it's going to be. So, regardless of any of that, rarely do I give away my FPS values because I don't find them relevant, but for the sake of this review, in the daytime, just, as I said, just average sort of medium settings in the sim, with all my add-ons running as well, I get about 29 to 40 plus FPS. It's usually towards the 40 plus that I get in the daytime. It very rarely sort of drops, unless of course it's on departure, which obviously as you depart in an airport like this, there's so much scenery around you to load in, sometimes you do get FPS drops. In the night time, I get FPS ranging from about 25 to 30, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more, depending on my settings and depending on how much traffic there is. It's quite good, in my opinion. That's not a terrible FPS value, and I wouldn't really look too far into that if you're considering buying the airport, because believe you me, it really is worth buying regardless, even on a sort of a low to medium end PC. a flight sim or gaming PC, you're still going to be very, very impressed with the performance that you can get out of this piece of scenery. So, that is it. So in conclusion, is this scenery worth buying? Well, I would definitely say so. I'd say Orbx Innsbruck has to be one of the must-have products for any flight sim enthusiast. Even if you're just starting out, it's a nice small airport which looks great, performs well, and has some really interesting eye candy when you tune things up with your add-ons and when you tune things up in the sim and stuff. Even when you don't, it still looks absolutely fantastic anyway. Now, if I was to mention any bad points or a reason why you shouldn't buy Orbx Innsbruck, then I wouldn't be able to. I'd really be pushing it because I can't think of any reason why you wouldn't want it. It's an absolutely amazing piece of scenery. It's a must-have scenery item. It really completes any flight sim setup, and for the price, I'd say you've got yourself a definite deal there. That is my review. That is my overview, or whatever you want to call it, of the Orbx Innsbruck Lima Oscar Whiskey India. Again, you can buy this directly from Orbx, or it might be available on other vendors, I'm not really sure. It's just easier to buy it direct from Orbx and then install it through your FTX Central, in my opinion. Again, the price equates to about $29.16 in the US. That's around €25 52, or in my case, £22.65. It's an absolutely fantastic scenery item that I would highly recommend. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.